So I've just picked 4 here. We do a lot more than this. I've just picked these for varying different reasons. I'm just going to very, very quickly talk you through them. So the first one is a grain whiskey that we produce. We produce a small range of grain whiskies at the distillery. This one's called Parched. So I'm just going to pour myself a little drop now. Basically, this is a pot still whiskey. So it's my kind of homage to the Irish pot still style. You know, really, really popular amongst people that come here. I think it's a nice whiskey for people that maybe aren't really into whiskey. Good introduction to whiskey, kind of quite light, quite fresh in style. I was, about a year ago, I was having dinner with Billy Layton, the master blender for Jameson's, and Brian Nation, the master distiller there. And rather rashly, I gave them a sample of this and asked them what they thought of English pot still whiskey. And Billy just looked at me, and for those of you that know, he's quite a big guy. He's about 6'6". He just looked down at me and said, "Good job." So I knew I'd probably made a fairly decent pot still. So, like our style, lots and lots of fruit on the nose, but that slightly crisp, unmalted barley thing coming through, that torrefied barley, so that you get that slight dry crispness on the nose, but lots and lots of fruit coming through. So we bottle this at 45%. We don't chill filter. We don't chill filter any of our whiskies at all. This one happens to be bottled at 45. We just decided on that, well, just because we could, really, for no other reason. Lots of crispness, kind of apricots, pineapple, fruit, a little bit of citrus, but not too much, more kind of dried fruits, really coming through. Nice, refreshing nose. So lots of fruit, nice fruit, apricots, a little bit of richness there. Not too much citrus, but a little bit coming through, a little bit of sweetness, but there's a kind of slightly sour balance, a little bit of texture there. I think you'll find it's an ideal breakfast whiskey. So I'm going to have a taste. You need to buy some to make sure you do, but I'm going to have a taste right now. So just a little bit on the palate. Wow. So that lovely, clean, crisp, classic kind of pot still style. Little bit of spice coming through now. I'm expecting that at 45%. I want a little bit of spice there. So I've got the fruit, I've got the spicy balance. Now it's going dry on the finish. Long finish, I'm still tasting that. But this lovely, crisp, fresh, dry finish. So really, really nice. You could mix that. I have no problem with people mixing any of the whiskies we produce here. If you want to use that in a cocktail, if you want to mix it, get it mixed. I have no issue with that at all. I'm not a snob about whiskey. As I said, when we were in the warehouse, whiskey's about taste, it's about flavour, it's about what you as an individual like. So just this lovely, I mean, yeah, as I said, breakfast whiskey, and that's a really good introduction. So let's move on to 11s. So this is what we call original. This is our best-selling whiskey by far. For me, this is what, I can't put it any better than this. This is what whiskey is. If people aren't really into whiskey, if they're not really sure what whiskey is, if they've been given a whiskey by their dad or their mum or their granddad or their nan or a friend, and they think they know what the flavour of whiskey is, this is what most people think about what whiskey tastes like. So it's that sort of classic whiskey taste. So 43%, again, unchill filtered, but this one happens to be bottled at 43, but richer on the nose, a little bit more richness. No age statement on this, but we've got some kind of toffee, some caramel, some richness coming through. Vanilla coming from those lovely oak casks that we're using. Much, much richer than the Parched. So the Parched, a little bit dry on the finish. This, I know, is going to give me more. It's going to give me more body. So, a taste. So you can feel the texture. The whole texture of the liquid is completely different. Much more oily, much richer on the palate. So the Parched, it's very crisp, very clean, very clear. This, you've got more depth. There's more richness on the palate. Finish again. Still long, sweet, little bit of spice kicking in on the finish now. Not so much as on the Parched because, again, we've come down in strength. So 45 to 43. So we brought that strength down, and we typically perceive alcohol as a spice. So the higher you go in strength, the more spicy it's going to feel. That's original. Next whiskey, Smoky. So this is the sister whiskey to original. As you can tell, we had a big meeting about this. We talked a lot. We did a lot of research and marketing, and took us about 27 minutes, and we came up with the name Smoky. So it was a big decision for us to make. But it says exactly what we wanted to say about the whiskey. So Smoky is exactly that. So it is peated. As I said, when we were in the distillery, we do make some peated whiskies, which is what we're doing today. So Smoky's the sister whiskey to original. So again, bottled at 43%. So we still have that richness there. We still have that, you can still smell the toffee. Remember I said when we were in the still room, we wanted to produce a cleaner peated whiskey. So whilst we've got the phenols there, whilst we've got that smoke there, we've got the texture there, it's lighter, it's fresher. We've still got the fruit. Lots of fruit. So this, to me, I can smell. It's like toasted marshmallows. You know, when you get the marshmallows and you put them on a stick and you've had your barbecue and you stick them in the fire. That slightly sweet, syrupy sugar smell, but with that wood smoke. Almost like fresh roasted lemons as well. We've got some citrus here. So if you kind of roast a lemon, you get that charring on the skin of the lemon. You get that coming through as well. Almost like kippers as well. Kippers are not fishy. They're sweet and smoky. We get that sweet, smoky texture coming through here. Almost like smoky bacon. It's like opening a bag of Frazzles, which cannot be a bad thing, to be honest. But let's have a taste. So again, right, the fruit is now bursting through. Spice coming through now. Softer. The texture is softer, more oily. We typically perceive peated whiskies to be slightly softer on the palate. The phenols tend to soften the palate. So the higher the phenolic content, the softer you're going to perceive it on the palate. But I'm now getting a little bit of spice, but I'm getting that fruit. I'm getting lemons. I'm getting citrus. I'm getting a little bit of toffee. It's almost like the dying embers of a beach fire. So if you ever had a barbecue on a beach, the fire's dying down, you can just get, it's that. You get this slight saltiness there. You get that evocative taste, which I'm not a big fan of peated whiskey, I have to tell you, but it's okay. I mean, I'm not saying that because I made it, but actually, would I drink it? Yes. But would I drink the next one we're going to taste more? I definitely would. So the next one we're going to taste is what we decided to call Smoky Virgin, which is probably a little bit near the knuckle, but we called it Smoky Virgin nonetheless. And the name tells you what you need to know. So it's peated, but it's been matured in virgin oak cask, predominantly. There's a little bit of bourbon cask matured whiskey in this, but predominantly virgin oak. So the Parched was American bourbon barrel. The original and the Smoky were American bourbon barrel. So all of those ex-Jim Beam. This one is virgin American oak. So virgin white American oak. A little bit of bourbon barrel in there as well, but just to soften it a little bit. The virgin oak is quite aggressive. It's giving you lots of colour. It's giving you lots of tannins. It's giving you lots of palate. It's giving you lots of texture. So we just needed to soften it off. Wow. Could not be more different to the Smoky. So this, for me, is softer. I'm getting those lovely leathery notes through. So soft, warm leather, slightly dried apricots, dried fruits, and a subtle waft of smoke on the nose. It's there, but it's really, really subtle. 46%, again, unchill filtered, 46%. So this is the strongest one we're tasting today. But that lovely fainty. Remember I said in the still room, we're talking about the faints going into the cut. So the faints at the end, remember I said if you take too many, a little bit bitter, they're not very nice on the flavour, they're not very nice on the aroma. But this, if you take the right amount, you get that lovely soft leather note, which is definitely coming through on this. And as I said, I'm not a massive fan of peated whiskey, but my mouth is watering. So here goes. Wow. So, soft, 46%, but soft. Now the spice is building. So I'm now getting that little kick of spice, but I've got that leather, I've got dried fruits. And remember, this is a virgin, predominantly virgin oak cask with a little bit of bourbon. So I'm getting some of that vanilla, getting a little bit of coconut, subtle peat. It's heavily peated. I mean, we're using as much peat here as some of the distilleries that you would associate with really heavily peated malts. But because we take that high cut on the still, as I was talking about, it comes through in a much more subtle way. So the smoke's there, the spice is there, the leather's there. This is complex, whereas the Parched that's your breakfast whiskey. This is evening. You know, it's that lovely, leathery, soft, just end of the day kind of stuff. I mean, that for me, as I said, I'm not a massive fan of peated whiskey. And in fact, lots of the guys at the distillery, I always make them try whiskies. Everyone that works here have to try the whiskies when I'm making them, and they don't like it. And we had lots of people here that don't drink whiskey when they started here. And actually, I get them to try it. And I had loads of people here said, I don't want to try it, it's peated. And I said, you need to try it, you need to try it. And they tried it and they were like, wow, that's so different, I really like it. So if you want something different, maybe you should try a Smoky Virgin.